While military raids have long been a fact of life in the occupied West Bank, there have been many more since October the 7th, an average of 40 a day. Israel is increasing the pressure here, while attention is focused on Gaza. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Tulkarem.
The families of Israelis being held captive in Gaza are calling on the government to do more to ensure their release. Israel hasn't confirmed whether the death of a 19-year-old female soldier held by Hamas was caused by an airstrike, a claim made by the group on Monday. Sarah Khairat reports from West Jerusalem.
Results are what these Israelis want, and immediately. Gathered in Tel Aviv, they make a desperate plea to the Israeli government to bring back their relatives and loved ones held captive by Hamas in Gaza.
I'm demanding from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the cabinet to give us answers and results. Where are you? We have no strength anymore.
Relatives are worried they'll lose their loved ones in Israel's relentless airstrikes. News of the death of one 19-year-old soldier, Noah Marciano, has come as a shock for many. On Monday, angry words were directed at a member of parliament who called to erase Gaza.
There are babies, Jews and Arabs, by the way. They're there. What is it supposed to do to our mental strength? To hear you talk with such slogans, to erase, to annihilate, to flatten. Who are you flattening?
As people sit in cafes in West Jerusalem, talk these days centres on how best to bring them back. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists the only way is through full military force.
I think they're going in the right direction, but they need to put more pressure on Hamas.
We feel that, they're not doing enough, but we may not know the full story. And so I believe that they are doing the best they can.
The government needs to do more to ensure captives are released through negotiations.
Hamas is offering a 5-day ceasefire in exchange of releasing some of the captives, among other conditions. Israel hasn't responded. Now, these are just some of the faces of the 242 captives being held in Gaza. Posters like this across the whole of Israel. A reminder to bring them back home as pressure on the Israeli government increases every day. Gershon Baskin helped negotiate the release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit in 2011 after 5 years in captivity. He believes that any type of ceasefire will be difficult to achieve.
There is only one way to bring all the hostages home alive, and that's the all-for-all deal. All the hostages for all the prisoners in Israel. That's very unlikely to happen. We're talking about 7,000 people, 559 of them who had killed Israelis and are serving life sentences, 130 other terrorists who were caught in Israel after October 7th. This is something that I cannot imagine Israeli society or this current Israeli government agreeing to at this point.
These protesters will be walking to Jerusalem in the coming days to meet at the Prime Minister's office and demand the return of their loved ones as soon as possible. Sarah Khairat, Al Jazeera, West Jerusalem.
Tens of thousands of protesters are gathering in Washington, D.C. for a rally in support of Israel. Several Jewish groups organized the protest to call for peace and the release of Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza. Well, our senior political analyst Marwan Bishara has more on those comments at the rally and how they echo the Israeli narrative of events.
There's a 116-page guide produced by the Israel Project in America. And I just heard 4 statements from this young man plucked out of the guide directly. He doesn't know what he's talking about exactly, but he copied word for word the words in the guide. For example, just starting with the first one when he said, this is not a question of Israel versus Hamas, this is a question about Hamas versus the world. This is exactly the sentence mentioned in the guide. Other things about him, he feels really sorry for every Palestinian child dead, but this is a guy again from the guide. So this young Hillel, sort of the kind of Zionist youth organization in America, AIPAC, a number of others, they're sort of educating, indoctrinating a young generation of American Zionists on how to talk to the media.
Yeah, because these are the same talking points that we hear, in fact, from Israeli officials, aren't they?
Absolutely. In fact, in the guide, the 116 guides, they mentioned Mark Regev, Netanyahu, and others as the people to emulate. and why they've been brilliant, why Peres had this incredible sentence, and why Netanyahu, when he talks about not our differences, but our shared prosperity, about how we care about each and every Palestinian family, and so on and so forth. So it's all an ecosystem of sorts.
And just to recap our top story before we go, the Israeli army is raiding Gaza's largest hospital where thousands of civilians are sheltering. It says its forces are conducting an operation within specific areas of the Al-Shifa compound. Doctors have vowed to remain with their patients. I will be back at the top of the hour with more on the war on Gaza. Up next, it's Bottom Line. Thank you very much for watching.